Why should we close the gender gap in STEM professions? This is a question that comes up all the time. One of the major reasons is a diverse workforce leads to a diverse set of solutions that works for everybody. When we have a less diverse workforce, we end up with biased technologies, biased products, and biased treatments. Our guest today is changing exactly that. An engineer turned patient advocate, Jocelyn is making a change in healthcare from inside out. So let's talk to Jocelyn and learn more about her STEM story. Hi there, this is Prasha and I'm passionate about helping you unlock your true potential in your science, technology, engineering, and mathematics career and beyond. Less than a decade ago, I moved to the US from India to live my American dream. I took my engineering career to the next level by starting my own consulting and coaching company while thriving at my 9-to-5 job. Money, time management, career planning, and personal growth are all things we'll discuss here. From expert guests and their stories to my own lessons, this show is an ongoing masterclass in how to believe in your brilliance and conquer your STEM career with confidence. Get a pen and paper and get ready for an education you wish you had in school. This is Her STEM Story, the podcast. This message is from our sponsor, IBM. Are you interested in tech for good and supporting causes that matter most to you? Master the Mainframe is a coding competition for students just like you. Join IBM to learn new skills, win scholarship money and prizes, gain access to jobs, and connect with future employers. It's for beginners and it includes 3 interactive levels, where students will code and administer the enterprise computing systems powering today's global businesses. In the spirit of holiday giving, for every student who finishes level 1, you'll be feeding 4 children through World Food Program's Share the Meal initiative. Visit masterthemainframe.com or use the link in the episode notes to register before doors close on January 17th, 2021. If you're not a student, help us recruit a student for this wonderful competition and feed the world's children. Don't forget to sign up at masterthemainframe.com. Hi, Jocelyn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Prasha. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, this is so great and so timely because of everything going on in the world. But first, I definitely want to ask you, tell us a little bit about the work that you do and what do you do for a living?
Sure. So I lead patient advocacy for a biotech company called Eidos Therapeutics. It's a bridge bio company. It's based in San Francisco, and I think I have the best job in the world because I get to work in science, but I get to work with regular everyday people every day, which is pretty fun.
That's awesome, and it's such a unique field. Especially, when we think about biomedical companies or even big pharma, we have such a different idea of what people probably do there. And I feel like patient advocacy is such a special topic. And as I was saying with COVID-19 and how we're seeing minorities suffering because of lack of medication, lack of symptom recognition, lack of even understanding, the pain or just the communication between doctors can lead to so many deaths. Like the numbers are staggering, right? So as a person who's pretty much on the front lines, tell us how has been your experience with this global pandemic that we're going through?
I think from a work perspective, it's actually opened my eyes to a lot of what I've always known has been under the surface. And it's really opened up the conversations a lot more than what I have ever experienced in my entire career. So today I get to participate in things like conference calls or webinars from companies and institutions or advocacy organizations where this idea of disparities in care was never top of mind. In fact, I was on a call earlier today where I learned that when you think about even just election issues here in the United States, disparities in care is popping up as one of the top things to be concerned about, which who would have thought that would happen? But I love that it's become a topic because that allows us to take a lot of the work that's been in process for many years and start to bring that to the forefront and hopefully make some changes.
Yeah, I love that. So there's so many like silver linings here, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And I think when coupled with the Black Lives Matter movement, this is, just a huge catalyst for a lot of things that were, as you said, not taken that seriously, or where people were saying, this is just advocacy work for the sake of it. But really, I think the two things have sort of combined and fueled a lot of conversations that we wouldn't have thought like a few months ago would be possible, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So tell us, how did you end up in this space?
It was kind of by accident, to be honest. I've been in industry for a while now, in the pharmaceutical industry for a while, and I've done a lot of different jobs. And at some point I realized, I got into this industry just like a lot of people in order to be close to the patient and feel like you're helping people. But our industry is so regulated that sometimes the job that you're in, although you're doing great work and ultimately it does help people, it doesn't feel like it. So when this opportunity came up where I could kind of take the experiences that I've had throughout my career in science and in other aspects of pharmaceuticals and pair that with the ability to work with real people every day, the communities, I jumped at it.
Yeah. That's amazing. And your education is in engineering. So how did that happen? Like, I love pivots. That's my favorite part about this show is I get to talk to so many women who have like pivoted. And I feel like so many of younger women are, sort of, they feel they're stuck because they chose a certain degree or chose a certain path. How does someone go from industrial engineering into patient advocacy?
When I think about it, it's probably just my weird brain, but the way I think about it, I kind of feel like I never really left engineering. Whenever an industrial engineer is someone who thinks about optimization of systems or processes or organizations or people, and that's exactly what I do today. I don't do it with lots of numbers and spreadsheets, but I do it through everyday interactions with people. There's something that someone said to me a long time ago, which is you want to work to the edges of your degree and your education. And I feel like no matter what role I've ever had, I'm always working to the edges of it. And that's what I feel about patient advocacy. Even with an engineering background, I feel like I'm engineering these optimal pathways and relationships and creating efficiencies for us to, within my industry, bring in these insights and therefore ultimately bring forth great medicines for patients.
Yeah, I love that because I think, again, a lot of people don't realize that engineering is all about optimization, all about efficiency and speed, which I think in science-based businesses or even in science there's no speed. And I feel like if you sort of bring that together, it can really be a beautiful, beautiful marriage of the two worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah, speed is what we work with here. We want to bring medicines to patients quickly.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. And tell us what got you interested in industrial engineering. So what is your your STEM story? So where did it start? How did you come about choosing this really unique engineering field?
That's such a great question. I think for me, growing up, STEM was never something that was top of mind for me. I have parents that have educations that would be considered STEM. My dad worked as a polymer scientist. On the side, he did carpentry. My mom did accounting and business administration, but on the side, she did, things like sewing and all of those things involve some type of design and some type of math. So for me, that's always been something I've been really interested in. And when I decided to go to college, I said, what do I want to do with my life? Well, originally I wanted to be an orthodontist because what kid doesn't want to be an orthodontist, Prasha? It's just the most exciting.
Not me. Just not me. I guess everyone but me.
But when it finally, when push came to shove and I started thinking about what do I want to do? What are the things that I loved doing in school? I wanted to combine all those elements. And the thing that fit the best for me was some type of engineering. And because of what I was exposed to, I actually enrolled in school pursuing a chemical engineering degree. But very quickly I learned this isn't what I love. This is not the type of engineering I love. And so going to school, I just started meeting with a lot of different people, learning about what different engineers did. And industrial seemed to fit really well with all of the things that I was interested in, being able to pull on lots of different disciplines and curiosities.
Yeah, I love that. And we have that in common, because I also I did chemical engineering for my bachelor's, and then I did master's in aerospace and then switched to mechanical. So I feel like there's so much, like, we need to talk more about this, that, it's important that people realize, or women realize, that this is not it. It's a process. Be kind to yourself and keep going. And I love that you were able to sort of even translate what you were seeing in your household and, like, maybe, use it into a career that you now enjoy being a part of, right? I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was it like going to school? Because I would imagine, you would probably be a double minority in a lot of classes. So tell us a little bit about that. What was that experience like, sort of living through that, being a minority in STEM, and at least in school?
Yeah, in school, I was definitely a double minority. There weren't very many women, but we tend to kind of bond together. And as far as being African American, again, I think college is a really great place to start building a network. And I had a group, from the moment I started school, there was actually a special program designed for people who were minorities in engineering, for us to meet each other. And so I got to go to this program, and I was able to build a really solid support network very, very early. And we'd study together. And even to this day, many of us still talk to each other, because, the networks that you build in college are often the ones that last for a lifetime.
Oh, that's amazing. I think another place where we need to also talk more about, which is use your resources, use your college resources, use these groups that are there in so many colleges, to find, people who are going through the same thing as you. And then that could make that experience a little bit more enjoyable, but also a little bit less, painful. Because if you're alone, it may seem like really overwhelming.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that, I think that sometimes, at least in the Black community, we're not always as good at underscoring the value of these networks and being able to tap into who you know. It's not always just about asking for help. It's also about it's a source of motivation. It's a source of familiarity. It's when you have a question, I now have some place to go to find that answer. There was a program that I worked with in Chicago where they always talked about how that first year of college is the most important. Because people are most likely to drop out then. And so they really try to support people getting through that first year. Yeah, absolutely an important topic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, what would be your advice to people who are saying, okay, yeah, it's easy for you to say, Jocelyn, but I don't know anyone and I have no network. So where should I start as a first-year student?
As a first-year student, honestly, where I would start is just find a study buddy in your class. That's one place I would start, because it only takes one, because that one person probably knows another. Another place I'd start is LinkedIn is a really good resource. The number of people that have reached out to me directly just to learn, or just to say, I just need someone to bounce ideas off of. Many of us are open to having those conversations. So I'd encourage those two things.
Yeah, for sure. I think LinkedIn is so and again, it's going to grow and it's going to get bigger and bigger, and it's really the time to get hold of that platform, because it's so valuable. I was telling someone that just through one LinkedIn connection I was able to do so many things, and it wasn't a lot of people, it was just one connection. And so sometimes it's just way more valuable connections on LinkedIn. And as you said, people are really excited to give back or just make these, really genuine connections. So that's incredible. So tell us, now shifting gears into, the work that you do in patient advocacy and, everything that's going on in the world right now. I think this is a really important question, which is, what is that one thing that, people don't realize about the shortcomings of healthcare in America and how it's sort of not designed to protect people like you and me and not protect and serve especially the people in the Black community. And then we can go into how you are combating that in your current role.
Yeah. When you ask that question, there are a couple of words that seem to that just stick in my mind and they just stand out. And that is this idea of protect and serve. And they stand out to me because when I think about a system that's designed to protect and serve, one of the foundational elements that need to be present is this idea of trust. And in our system of healthcare, there may not be that inherent sense of trust, especially when I think about Black Americans. And I'm going to use a really simple example here. Multiple studies have shown that Black patients tend to have better outcomes when they see Black doctors. And there's this great study that was published by Stanford back in 2018. I think it was in September. And in this study, what they looked at were Black men in Oakland. And they did this study by looking at these men, and they wanted to measure the impact of having a diverse group of physicians. And they wanted to measure the impact on preventative care among African American males. So they took these African American males and they were looking specifically at cardiovascular preventative care and flu shots, the flu vaccine. And they randomized these men to either a Black physician or a non-Black physician. And there were actually two parts to the study, but I'm going to focus on the second part, where they had the patient meet up with the physician, and then they wanted to see, okay, what preventative care choices did these patients make? What they found was that Black patients who were seeing and met with a Black doctor were more likely to choose multiple preventative cardiovascular services and were more likely to get a flu shot than those Black patients who saw a non-Black physician. What did that boil down to? Well, the study concluded that if there were more Black doctors, you may be able to close the gap between cardiovascular mortality of Black men versus white men by 19%, which is huge. So that's, the empirical data, but it also showed in this study that just the conversation, the openness of the conversation between the Black patient and the Black physician, they had a longer conversation, the doctor took better notes, just better outcomes altogether. So I think, to me, representation matters. Having someone that you inherently trust that's treating you or as part of the drug development process, someone that you believe understands your needs, is really, really important. And that I think is the one thing.
And I think it's so important because, again, it's such an afterthought, like how biases are leading to these huge problems in the society, which earlier, if you look at media and if you look at a lot of the ways this news is shared with the world, is, facing like, Black people have lower immunity, or, it's the Black community, the way, the way they do this or the way they do that. And it's just how twisted it is, when at the core of it, it's the bias and as you said, lack of trust, which again is sort of bias, because if both patient and doctor don't trust each other, I think it just aggravates situations and doesn't serve anyone in the end. And so I love that you said that. It probably doesn't, and this is the thing, if it doesn't protect and serve the Black community, it doesn't protect and serve anyone else, because you have to protect and serve everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's part of this idea of public health, right?
So how do you in your current role are working towards changing that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways. Within the IDOS space, we've got a clinical trial running that's looking at a condition called Transthyretin Amyloidosis. Mm-hmm. And in that community, there are individuals that are of African ancestry are more likely to have a hereditary mutation. Mm-hmm. that predisposes them to this condition. So we're thinking about how do we make sure that we're engaging this community when it comes to our clinical trial, as well as how are we engaging the community to understand what their unique needs are when it comes to this condition. So that's one way I'll highlight. The other way I'll highlight is at the BridgeBio level, our parent company, who did something that I was really proud of. We're a smaller organization, and so sometimes you think, what can we do to impact what's happening in the world around us? And I think we took a really big step this year in bringing on interns, working with an organization called Project On-Ramp, which is based out of Boston. This organization supports college students from underrepresented backgrounds and provides them with internships in the life sciences. So we took on interns through this program to expose them to the opportunities that could be available in the pharmaceutical and biotech space, which I think is awesome because there's so many jobs that are great for people with STEM backgrounds in our space, but you wouldn't know them unless you're in this space. Yeah. So just providing that level of visibility makes me really proud of working for a company like BridgeBio. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think, again, such a mission-oriented business, but also not just the mission that goes on the wall, right? But just really living the mission and living the values. And I'm sure you guys are working, thinking about like the pandemic and, how this is affecting healthcare forever. I just hope that there are more incentives for such projects and such work, because again, there's so much need to bridge this gap of years and years and years, like so many years that has, it keeps becoming bigger. So I'm hoping that with everything going on and with your company, you guys are able to start filling that gap slowly, but surely. So tell us a little bit about, and this is again, a topic that we can talk about all day long. But tell us a little bit about, you've been working in this space. What has been your biggest struggle, whether it is conveying to people why this is important, or whether it's the other way around? What has been your biggest struggle being a patient advocate as a career?
Yeah, I think probably my biggest struggle just in patient advocacy has been this industry works fast. Science moves fast. Innovation moves quickly, and sometimes capturing those insights from the patient community can be a challenge. How do you find the representative populations that can share with you what the unmet need is, and how do you characterize that in a way that's tangible and can be understood by the people that are deep in the molecules and deep in the science and deep in the clinical trials? So that's definitely been a challenge. The other aspect that's been a challenge, just thinking about diverse populations, is while companies recognize that this is a problem, the solutions aren't always that simple to implement. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's because representation of people of color or other underrepresented groups are not always at the most senior levels within companies, specifically in the biotech and pharmaceutical realm. Mm-hmm. So who's representing those voices at the most senior levels? Mm-hmm. The industry has moved and it's getting a lot better. You're starting to see opportunities across the board in healthcare where women and people of color are starting to be offered these opportunities. But those are probably the biggest two, is the fast-moving nature of our business and just how do you make sure that there's representation so the right voices are at the table.
Yeah. And I think that you're the perfect person for that job, because as an industrial engineer, if there's one thing that you can truly, truly bring to the table is how do you translate this information and really make it, an industry or talk in that language of the industry. Yeah. Because I think a lot of engineers, that's exactly what engineers do anyways. But industrial engineers do it even more. They actually study about it. I think different engineers usually just get to the plants and learn, or get to the industry and learn. But I think industrial engineering has some of those courses that may prepare you in that direction. And you also have, a management degree. So you probably are someone who's really, really good at this stuff. But see, that I love that you say that, because I think with the Black Lives Matter movement, this was one of the things that people rushed at, right? Like when, oh my God, let's fix it. Like, right? Like oh my God, like we need to fix it. And it's like, when you think like engineers, or when you think like people who are in problem solving business, in the business of problem solving, they realize that there's a delay, right? There's a delay, and there is a business case that has to be made for everything. And how do you sort of make it, especially if you're at the fringes of so many different things, like the pharma industry and the patient, and you have so many different worlds sort of colliding. It can be really, really hard.
Yeah. And I think that's, like, I think you summarized it so well, Prasha, because this is exactly what I went to school for. I went exactly to school to think about complex systems. Where are those commonalities, and how do I influence that system so that it works better? So I love that you said that. And I hope that more and more people see how a lot of these different careers really do combine, and they come together and offer these new opportunities to think about where is your passion, and how do you pursue that in a way that feels right and good for your strengths and your interests. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because again, I think a lot of times we're so focused on our weaknesses that we're not good at this, we're not good at that, and we keep fixing that. And then we forget all the things that we're good at, and, you know, completely miss the point where you could really leverage things that you're already good at and market yourself in pretty much any industry. And I think with engineering, that's like the beauty of it, is that if you really understand what engineering is at the core of it, it's just smart problem solving. You could market yourself to pretty much any industry that you want to be a part of, and use that degree to your benefit. So it's just something that I think engineers should become more about, like, you know, again, using their strengths and diversifying their own, you know, space too. But I love that you're in this role, because again, you can do wonders and you can really like start the change. I think, again, making change is something that's going to take time and a lot of more people involved. But tell us a little bit about the same, you know, sort of on the same line of thought, where, you know, with Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of us are struggling and thinking, what can we do? What do you think we can do as, you know, as common people, or even, let's say, as patients, or, you know, users of services that you guys provide? What can we do differently to sort of eliminate some of these biases, these issues, and how can we advocate for our family or our friends, or who are probably patients too? So what do you think we can do?
I love that question. I think what you can do, I think number one is just continue to educate yourself and feel confident. I think one of the things I recognize, especially with people of color when they're going into the doctor's office, is something that I've heard consistently, is that sometimes people are afraid to talk, to speak up. Yeah. And I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself, is not be afraid to ask a question. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you may feel like the doctor's trying to rush out of the room, or the nurse, but ask that question. So that's one thing I definitely believe that every person should do to take control of their own healthcare. And then, of course, the second is around education and educating yourself, whether that be through the internet, whether that be, you know, if you don't know about the drugs that you're taking, for example, you know, there's a number that's on the back of that prescription that you can call, and they'll send you information. Or many companies have nurses that will talk with you about your particular situation. So those are two very low-hanging fruit items that you can engage in. And then the third is, as you're doing your research, you may identify that there's a patient advocacy organization that you can get involved in. And guess what? They're designed specifically to help patients advocate for themselves. This is a place where you get to meet other people that might be dealing with something that you're dealing with, whether it's the condition itself, as a caregiver, financial challenges. They're there to help you build that community and be part of something that's bigger than yourself. So that's probably where I would say the three areas that I would start.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think one of the things, again, speaking up, I think it sort of comes back full circle to trust, and to, you know, sort of, even if you don't have the trust, like recognizing that because this person doesn't look like me, I may not trust them. And it doesn't mean that I don't advocate for myself. I should still ask, you know, whatever it is that I want to ask. But do you also think, and I think this is probably true, especially in America, is that, you know, with the economic disparities in minorities, and then how freaking expensive healthcare is, is there any hope? Like, I'll just say it this way. Like, I don't know if you know the answer, but I can't sleep at night because I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I can't fall sick. Like, it's just too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell the
We
future.
don't know.
But I can say this. I can say that when it comes to healthcare and the cost of healthcare, it's a really complicated system. I would bet that if you even just plucked 10 people that work in this industry and sat us all down, we might give you 10 different answers on how this idea of healthcare and the cost of healthcare and what's playing into that system works. So what I'll say is that everyone who would sit at that table, no matter what realm of healthcare they're coming from, has an interest in making healthcare accessible to patients. And yeah, so I believe that down the line, at some point, we'll get to a place where healthcare feels more accessible and is more accessible to more people. But it is going to take some time because it's complicated. And I just believe that everyone has the patient's interest at heart. I really do. It's just complicated.
That's good to know. That's one silver lining in the whole thing is that, there's hope. That's all we can, sometimes that's all we need is that, is there hope for America and America's healthcare system? Because where I come from, it's free, right? So I come from India and it's totally free and it's super simple. You can go anywhere you want. And if you go to a private doctor, they can charge you all the money in the world. And so when I tell my mother, it's like, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's going to cost this much. And it's like, how can this cost like this much? And I'm like, I wish I could tell you, but it does. So I don't know what it is. But changing gears, coming back to sort of like where we started with your story, I would love to know, what do you think is your superpower?
I think that my superpower is the ability to think differently. If someone were to take all of the jobs I ever had since my first job in high school and kind of laid them all out, someone would probably say, oh my goodness, Jocelyn has no focus whatsoever. She has no idea what she's doing. But ultimately, all of those experiences come together. When there is a problem to be solved, I'm able to pull on all of those experiences and that storehouse of knowledge that I've built up and come up with a solution or an idea that other people may not have thought of. There was once I had a colleague who told me once that while a lot of my ideas aren't great ideas, they do get other people thinking about different possibilities. And that ultimately leads to innovation. And that to me is something I'm really proud of, that I have the ability to think differently, and I'm not afraid to offer up those opportunities and ideas, even when it may not feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's incredible, because again, that sounds so important for, especially for minorities, is to really offer whatever they think is, like what they think they can bring to the table and not worry about that, but also utilizing all your experiences and again, using them as a strength over this. Someone can see it as a weakness, but, you personally should see them as a strength, that, it's just your exploration, it's your journey, and it's your STEM story. So, you sort of write it like wherever you want to take it, right? Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. So tell us, how can women like you and me start believing in their brilliance? Because all of us doubt ourselves all the time, and we need to stop that. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of ways. The first way I'd say is really get to know yourself. Know what you enjoy, know what you love, know what you're good at, and pursue that. Because I think there's nothing better than finding something you're good at and just going after it relentlessly, because it gives you more confidence naturally. So that's the first way. The second way that I'll say goes back to something we talked about, which is networking. Yeah. Find other women that inspire you, can offer you honest advice, because one area that I found to be the most beneficial in my career is having people to look up to, someone to say, gosh, I really want to be like that when I grow up. And even today, I have those people that I work with or that I've worked with in the past, that are those people that offer you the brilliance that you aspire to be. And I think those two things together can help women really embrace their own brilliance.
That's Oh, that's really, really, really well said. Is that, when you start seeing other people, connecting with them, it just so much of it becomes real, right? Like it becomes tangible, it becomes achievable. And this advice, I take it to heart, and I want all our listeners to do that too. And I think because we've mentioned LinkedIn, I think one of the things we can ask everyone is to follow you and follow me on LinkedIn. So tell us, where can they find you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. You can find me just searching my name, Jocelyn Ashford, and there's an M in the middle. I'm not going to tell you what it stands for, but it's M as in Mary.
Okay, so we'll keep the middle name for next time to know what that middle name is. But before we let you go, I would love to know, what's your favorite book?
Let's see. So this in the past year and a half, I've been on this journey to read a Pulitzer Prize winning book every month. Wow. And I have this book that I read recently. It's called The Art of Rivalry by Sebastian Smee. And this book actually takes 4 pairs of renowned artists who are all known as modern artists, who each of these pairs knew each other in real life. And it follows how their relationships and the conflict in those relationships helped them evolve and find their unique voices. And it was a really inspiring book for me to think about, just kind of think in the past and how have my relationships and that conflict in those relationships made me who I am. It's a really great book. I highly recommend it.
Oh my God, I have to read it. That is awesome. And that's an awesome thing to sort of do, which is, I've never heard anyone do such a special reading challenge. And so, I'm very excited to see maybe on your LinkedIn when you share more about these books. And this is such a great topic on rivalry and conflict, and especially talking about women in STEM. We're so afraid. Oh my God, we want to be the most liked person in the room. And that's why we're not even going to say, your foot is on my toe. It's hurting. We're like, no, please like me. And I think this is so important to learn more about how to deal with conflicts, how to deal with rivalry, and how to really learn from it and become your own self, which is sort of the theme of your entire story. So I love that we're able to put a big bow on it with this phenomenal book. So thank you so much, Jocelyn, for your time and for sharing with us your work and all the great things that you're doing, because we really need warriors like you, advocating for minorities in healthcare, especially in America.
Thank you, Prasha. I've really had a great time talking with you.
And that was Jocelyn with her incredible STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Jocelyn and her amazing work. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Prasha Dutra, and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast if you enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again next week. Bye.